Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. I am out on the road again. As you can see, I'm in a giant empty ballroom. Thought this would be a fun place to talk to everybody from. And I'm looking forward to today's conversation because today I'm going to kick off a new series of what I call is a conversation about the new normal. You know, where I see real estate and mortgage lending heading in the future. And so I'll introduce the topic today. Hopefully it'll resonate with you. And then in the upcoming weeks on Thursday, I'll revisit the topic and I'll share with you what I think I want to talk about. But you know, when I talk about the new normal, I talk about what's the current condition real estate and mortgage industries are in, and where do we need to be to succeed in the future. And here's how I like to talk about it. I like to say, you know, especially from the mortgage side and now the real estate side too, you know, we're like in this old galleon, this ship crossing the ocean, and it's super stormy and there's high tides and the boat's getting battering, and you know, we're just trying to get through the storm. You know, we're just trying to find a safe shore, you know. And the thing that I keep, you know, trying to encourage everybody is, yes, we have to get through the storm, but the bigger challenge is when we find refuge out of the storm and we land on the shore of a new normal. What's that shore going to be like? And can we survive on the new shore? I mean, are we going to land are we going to land on a shore that's full of hostiles or inhabitable or, you know, really difficult, or is it going to be warm and welcoming? You know, and for me, I'm more focused on what's going to happen when we hit land, than I am about the storm, because I'm confident that we'll get through the storm. And for us, the storm, look, if you're in mortgages, the storm is volumes dropped from 4.1 trillion to 1.3 or 1.3 trillion and now 1.6. That's dramatic, right? Compliance and rules are changing every single day. Customers are demanding more and more. There's of course fewer deals for fewer people, you know. And then in real estate, I mean, everything, the land's shifting, you know, underneath your feet, things are changing. And that's the storm. And by the way, real estate volume's down, and for all of us, it's harder to get a customer and keep a customer. Customers are really becoming not fickle, but demanding, you know. They're demanding a lot more, their behavior is changing. And so that's the storm we're in. And we're headed to the shore, but the thing we have to pay attention to is, you know, it's probably not worth the battle of getting through the storm if we don't figure out how to thrive when we get to land. And that's what I like to talk about, because it's, you know, I'll share with you, my title, you know, I'm the Chief Strategic Officer for Homeowners Financial Group, and I've always been somewhat uncomfortable with that title. Like, what does it mean, you know? But I've come to understand, you know, as I understand my role and what that title might mean is, you know, my job is to help my company, you know, land safely on the shore of new normal and thrive. And you can put it differently. It's also like, you know, it's Wayne Gretzky's skate to the puck. You know, my job is to help my company skate to the puck. And that's a great job. It's also really interesting because when you tell people that, hey, we're going to land on the shore of a new normal and we all have to get ready for it, you know, people think you're crazy. And oftentimes when you say, hey, look, we need to be different when we land, some people take that as calling their baby ugly or tell them they're deficient, and they don't want to hear that. They're like, hey, I'm great. I don't need to change. We're going to conquer it. But you know, CSO's job is to go, hey, hi, you are great, but let's just see if we can't prepare a little bit. And so that's why for the last, you know, year and a half, 2 years, I've been talking about this land we're going to land in and the new normal and what we all need to do. And I thought it'd be something good to share with whoever wants to listen to. And so that's what we're going to kind of talk about. Let's talk about, in doing so, I want to frame this a little bit in that the challenge is huge for us because we're coming up, we've been molded, you know, in our ways for the past, you know, decade and a half, the past 14 years of really being in an advantageous market. I mean, if you're in lending, you know, we've had, for the most part, for 14 years, we've had improving interest rates, increasing volumes, increasing consumer wealth, right? There's been a big tailwind behind us. Now there's bumps. I understand there's bumps. 2018 was a big bump. There's been bumps, but largely, you know, we went from a 8% mortgage market or a 7.5% mortgage market down to a 2.5% mortgage market. And we went from volumes under 2 trillion to volumes over 4 trillion. And all those created problems, and so I'm not Pollyannish. I mean, trying to swallow all that volume was really difficult. But for the most part, it was pretty easy in that you could be a loan officer in the mortgage industry, and all you need to do is sit at your desk, and if you answered your phone, you're going to make a dang good living, right? Because there wasn't enough loan officers to go around to serve the volume. And you think about it coming out of the Great Recession, where 50% of the loan officers left the business within like 6 months. And then by the time we got to 2010, 2011, rates came down, the economy started strengthening. There was a shortage of loan officers, and there was a period of time when consumers were just thankful if you'd help them. It wasn't rate competing, it wasn't service or value. It was like, I can't get anybody to return my phone calls. Thank you so much for answering my call. And if you just sat at your desk and answered the call, you made a pretty dang good living. And real estate wasn't as extreme, but it had some of the same tailwinds to it, right? And how I like to describe that is, we're Olympic runners, and we had been conditioned to be world-class runners running a downhill race, and so, we were all hitting personal best. We were running 4.5-minute miles straight downhill, and we were champions. I mean, obviously, we not only felt like champions, we performed like champions, but our results were like championships. But then we get into 2022, and the hill all of a sudden isn't so downhill. It's starting to go flat, and now we're running on flat ground, and we're starting to feel, the effect of gravity a little bit, and going, holy smokes. I notice my times are getting a little higher. I know now I'm not running 4.5-minute miles, I'm running 6-minute miles, and I'm so confused because I'm training like I always have been. I'm trying as hard as I always had been. Why are my results different, right? And then as we got out to the end of 2022, the course went from being flat to being uphill. Now, for those of you who run, and obviously I don't run that much, although I try, but those of you that running uphill is far different than running downhill, right? You use completely different muscle sets, you need different cardio, you need different, endurance, you have different mindset. So if I was running 4.5-minute downhill miles, championship level, and now I'm running 12-minute, uphill miles, and I can barely finish a mile, I'm really wondering what the heck happened to the world, right? If I've been conditioned for 14 years for what I was doing is working, what I was doing is making me a champion, and all of a sudden it's not working, holy smokes, right? I mean, it's completely unsettling and bewildering. And so there was a period, and I mean this for both individuals and companies, right? That all of a sudden, gosh, we had come to believe that we were great, and then we faced this, I don't know if it's adversity, a different course, and we wondered who we are and what we're doing, and sometimes it came out as being victims, like how did the market do this to us, and what the heck happened, and all this stuff is going on, and some of us just wished it to go back, like if we can just hang on, if May 10th comes, or whatever day we think, or if the 6th rate, Fed rate cuts come, or whatever it is, it will all get better. And that's, and so that really paralyzed us for a while as we're waiting for, something externally to help come and fix us, to help, change the way. And the truth is, it's true that we're running uphill, but it won't matter because the race is going to totally be different tomorrow. So it doesn't, today we're trying to acclimate to running uphill after running downhill, and it's good that we're learning how to acclimate and learning how to thrive in that environment. But the bigger challenge, the bigger contest is when we land in the shores of the new normal, are we going to be ready and are we going to be able to compete? And those are the kind of things that I really want to talk about. I think, so with this, downhill race we've been running, we gained the skills to win in that race, but the race has changed today, and everything's changing. Everything is changing. The consumer demands are changing. The platforms in which we deliver our services are changing. The compliance and legal environment in which we operate are changing. And then, of course, technology is changing the world. So all this stuff is really surrounding us, and I'll share a story about this, by the way. I'm going to share about the technology part, and I'll tell you, on the series going forward, I'll pick a topic every week, whether it be compensation or business models, or technology, or customer service, customer journeys. I'll pick a different topic every week, and I'll just kind of give you my opinion on where I think it's going. But I'll give you. I want to share something that happened a few years ago. I worked at Loan Depot for quite a few years. Good company. Worked there 12 years. Enjoyed my time there. And you know, Loan Depot is one of those you know, mortgage banks that is very into technology. Really wants to have a technology-enabled platform. Really drive efficiencies in technology. Now they were early, you know, adopters of this, and so it was kind of clanky at the time, but the vision was strong, and they built this technology lab called the Mello Campus. And at the time when I worked there, they had about 400 or 500 technologists working in the Mello campus, and they were trying to create the ultimate customer experience. You know, which, you know, they were ahead of their time. Now, most big companies are doing this now, and other companies have made huge strides. And you know, and I'll say in a foreshadowing way, I think that the promise of technology will be delivered here in the next 12, 18 months, where all the things that we've dreamt of and been told are coming will be realized. But anyway, back then I was taking a group of recruits. It was a large group, like a really big group of recruits that we were recruiting, and a lot of times we'd take them to the Mello Lab, this technology campus, to kind of wow them, going, gosh, here's what's happening at the lab. Here's what we're doing, right? And so I have this group and I'm explaining to them the different, like there's pods of technologists, and some are, and you know what they're trying to do is what we're headed to. You know, can consumers simply give us their thumbprint, and can we get them approved on the spot, virtually cleared for docs, you know, around the compliance rules, but essentially give them, you know, minute one certainty, get them an approval that is real, like without getting documents, just verify your identity, and through mega data and through data repositories, we're going to go get everything in instant, and we're going to give you an approval, and bang, there you go, right? And so that's the dream now that all sorts of companies are working on. Some companies are getting really close to having too, by the way. But anyway, so I have this group in the Mello Lab, and I'm telling them the vision. I'm saying, these are what these people are working on, and this is what these people are working on, and this is the part that they're working on, and here's how they're all integrating, and here's the big picture. And the tour takes about 45 minutes, and we get done with the tour, including going down the slide, by the way, because if you're a technology campus, you have to look like a Google campus or, you know, a tech campus. So you got to have goofy things like ping pong tables and foosball and slides and a cafeteria and all that other kind of stuff. But including going down the slide. But we got done with the tour, and I go, hey, what do you guys think? What do you think about this future? And I swear to you, the leader says, Ron, I could never work here. I don't want to be a part of this. Okay, I get it. I appreciate that. But what that person didn't understand is it was coming whether they worked there or not. Like, that future is coming, right? The future of that highly, you know, tech-enabled experience that whether you like it or not, the customer wants, it's coming, and you don't get to boycott it, you know, because what the leader said is, if we adopted this, what would be our role, right? And I was thinking, if you don't adopt it, what's your role, right? Your role is gonna change no matter what. Just what side, you know, what end of the bus are you gonna sit on here? And so they're like, I'm gonna opt out of all this. I'm gonna opt out. Now, my clients may not opt out, which means you're opting out of something totally different. But and so that's what I talk about, the new normal. I talk about that, and the new normal isn't all about technology. It's about all the things that surround us, right? And so, you know, we're coming from a spot where, you know, when the change, like if you're in mortgage, when, you know, volume slammed on the brakes, or if you're in real estate, same thing, volume, tap the brakes, compliance, fear, comp changes, there's tons of pressure on comp, all that kind of stuff. You know, the first thing I think we did is we looked for a villain, like, who did this to us? Because I'm obviously great. Who did this to me? Like, why did my company do this? You know, how did my company screw this up? Or who screwed this up for me, right? Because I'm a victim of what's happening. And then, as I mentioned, then we said, well, I'm a victim, but I'm going to march on, and I'm going to get to the other side, which is probably going to be a few weeks, a couple months, and then it's going to return to normal, and my greatness will return. And companies made the same problem. Companies are very slow to make really hard choices, and running a company is difficult because the choices you make affect a lot of people, right? And sometimes you have to make really hard choices that are for the good of the company, but harm individuals. And that's a tough thing to do, but that's your job, right? And then, of course, if you're an individual, it's hard to stare yourself in the mirror and go, what role did I play? What role do I have in being where I'm at, right? And the good news is, I think that both companies and individuals, whether it's real estate agents or loan officers, have really started to turn the corner. And I've felt this, and I feel this largely a lot of times when I'm at a conference, right? I try to pay attention to what the vibe is and what people are feeling. I get to talk to a lot of people in the industry, and we've gone from being paralyzed and bewildered and being victims and really just hoping for the market to change to starting to become empowered and taking responsibility of our outcome. And I sense that because people are now, they're starving for solutions. They're starving to figure out, we're all starting to figure out, hey, things have changed, not just temporarily. I'm going to have to change. I'm going to have to change to compete. I'm going to have to change to thrive. And so people are starting to look for solutions. And that's why when you go to conferences, you see, people are plugged in, they're networking, they're trying hard, they're really there to learn. It's not, they're purposefully going, how do I change to be able to meet the market, right? And that's really encouraging. And companies are doing the same thing. Companies are making really difficult decisions. And the decisions aren't, the decision isn't like, here's another concept. The decision isn't that I'm going to run faster on the hamster wheel. Like, that's not a good decision. I'm coaching a loan officer about a year ago, and he was having a really hard time. He was a new loan officer in the business, and he had, his first year in the business, this tells you how the market is. First year in the business, as a loan officer, he does $45 million. Second year in the business, does nearly $100 million. Like, okay, you're really running downhill. You're skiing downhill, right? And then the market turned, and man, he was having a hard time getting deals. And so he's going, hey, Ron, you know what my strategy is? I just got to, instead of making 100 calls a day, I got to make 200 calls a day. I'm like, that's great. That's great. Let me ask you. I go, how many deals are you getting from these calls? How are these calls working? He's like, I'm not really getting any response right now. But if I just make more, it's going to be better. I'm like, 2 times 0 doesn't get more. It gets you 0. And so one of the things I keep encouraging people is get off the dang hamster wheel. Don't try to run faster on the hamster wheel. Get off of it and take a different path, right? That's your path to success. And so I'm starting to see that companies are starting to get off their hamster wheel. They're starting to try to do things differently. It's hard, you gotta cut every expense. You gotta make every single dollar matter. And while you're in this expense cutting, at the same time, you have to be focused on building value for your employees, value for your salespeople, value for the end consumer. And it's a really complicated thing. Here I got to cut people. I got to cut things that we love. We got to cut things that we've always had. And then over here, we got to go, but we got to invest tons in this. We got to invest in technology and marketing and training and all this other stuff, all these value adds. And so it's a really tricky thing to try to do both at the same time. And when you start talking about cutting expenses, my favorite probably example of this, I remember listening to Todd Screama talk about having shred bins, and how he went on a rant at his company one day because he walked around his offices and he saw that there was 14 shred bins, and he looked at the monthly bill for the shredding, and he just had a tizzy. He goes, we're a paperless effing company. Why the F do we have 14 shred bins? If we're paperless, it's paperless. I want those out of here today. And it didn't matter that, shredding is inexpensive. When I was listening to him, it wasn't that he was worried about that $1,000 bill a month or whatever it is. It was a mindset of let's not be wasteful, right? And I can tell you from a, executive, spot, when the market turned and we started really having to look at expenses, there is amazing how much expenses we had that just were for nothing, like were of no value. Like, and I'll give you an example of that. Let's say that in your MarTech stack, you have all these subscriptions, and you might, a company might have, 200 subscriptions that say MBS Highway, but you only have 120 people that are actually, subscribed. You're like, why am I paying for 80 extra seats? But when you're booming with money, you don't pay attention to all those things. But when it's a tough market, you start paying attention to that. Well, today, it's more than that. Today, you can't just, it's not about cutting, the easy stuff or the low-hanging fruit. You got to make tough cuts, and you got to figure out what you're going to be. Loan officers are doing the same thing. I'm super excited. I can tell, loan officers have really dug into, what am I going to be tomorrow? How do I need to build it? And taking a sober assessment of who they are. And I think that's awesome, and I think that's the road forward. So we're going to talk about this for the upcoming weeks. I have a lot to say. As you can say, I can go on for hours just talking to myself. But I'll tell you, the future, we're facing the best future of our careers. Now, the customer wants more. The customer wants more. They expect more. The customer wants to be cared for and served, and they want to be heard, right? and they want to be served in the way they want, not the way we dictate. I mean, if you think about it, for 30 years as a lender, even as a real estate, we told the customer how they could work with us. We told them what they needed to do, what we needed, when we needed it, right? We didn't say, hey, how would you like this process to go, right? No, we gave them like a list of stuff, right? And we gave them the roadmap, and we said, do it this way, and we didn't care. But the customer doesn't want that anymore, And here's another thing: the customer doesn't want to overpay, and we can't be mad about that, right? And I'm not picking on my friends in title, but I use title as an example. A property title insurance policy has like 3% claims. It's like 95%. It's 3% claims. Total cost is like 15%. That includes commission, cost of manufacturing, all that kind of stuff. And so there's 85% margin. Now, if you're one of my title friends, you don't beat me up if I got this wrong. And I'm not beating you guys up. I'm just using an example. Consumers can go, why am I paying $3,000 for a title policy on a house that's sat on that block for 100 years? Right? I mean, we know what's happening now. Now we know blockchain and other things are going to replace that, and title's going to be totally automated. But so title people, if you're in title, you have to figure out, where do I fit? How do I thrive? Where do I go? If you're a rep, what do I need to pivot to? If maybe I'm not going to have as much value as a face-to-face salesperson, how can I leverage my network and my skills? What can I do to serve the consumer and be valuable? And loan officers and lenders and real estate companies are having to do the same thing. We're trying to have to figure out what the consumer wants. And so that consumer, they're going to demand more. They're going to want to get paid less. They want a highly technical experience, most of them wrapped around a very human blanket, right? A very human touch. And we're going to have to master how to do that, not be afraid of it. We're going to have to master how to leverage technology for efficiencies and for service. We have so much to learn, but so much to get better about. But when we get there, it's going to be an unbelievable opportunity. Now, everybody's not going to make it, but that's okay, because sometimes the industry moves away from you, or a consumer moves away from you, and it's time to repurpose. That's okay. But the ones that dig in will make it, and they'll have a really, really wonderful opportunity in the future. I will tell you though, as we start to look forward to the future, it's the first step is there's a few steps you got to take. The first one is assess where you're at. Be honest. Like, am I winning or losing in today's marketplace? And am I as valuable as the next person? And then try to really understand, what do you think the consumer wants tomorrow? Like, ask them, like, start talking to people, pay attention. Like, if you dreamed of an experience in mortgage or real estate, what would it look like? And then the next thing is, and this is the most important thing, we have to really get connected to, reconnected to our purpose. And we all got into this business for a reason. And it wasn't necessarily these giant paychecks. It was to help people achieve the American dream of home ownership and wealth through real estate. And if we approach it that way, I'll end with this, because I know I'm going long. When people say, gosh, the market's horrible, or the market business is bad, right? When people tell me that, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what business are you in if you're in real estate or if you're in mortgage? They're like, yeah, volume's way down, I'm not getting deals, on and on about them. It's about them. Right? But the truth is, home buyers, potential home buyers and homeowners have never needed our advice and counsel more, right? It's really complicated. Should I buy right now? Should I refinance? Should I consolidate my debt? Should I wait for interest rates to go down? Will home prices come down? I don't know what to do. How do I get into the housing market? Like, they're more anxious, or more fearful, they're more concerned. They need us more than ever. And if our job is to serve them, this is the best market ever. Anyway, that is the start of the new normal. I'm going to try to do this every Thursday. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to talking about it more as the upcoming weeks. Go make it a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.